are from. Or A or C. I actually don't know which one. B and C. Good to have you here. Oh, hey, friends. More of you are coming in. I'm just going to go ahead and take a moment to say hi to everyone on this side of the room because back out. Oh, I didn't get you. Friend, what's your name?
Daryl Bigger.
Hi, Daryl. Where are you from?
Walla Walla.
Oh, welcome from Walla Walla. Gorgeous place. Gorgeous place. Tried to transfer there when I was younger. My admin said no. What's your name? In Love. They said it in Love.
I'm Vivian Kirk.
Hi.
I'm from McMinnville.
Where's that? How far away?
45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay. What's your name?
Jimmy Forche, and I'm also from McMinnville.
Oh, fantastic. Hey.
Hi. Tom Byram from Beaverton.
How far away is that, Tom?
40 minutes.
Okay, cool. Friends of the headphone. Hey, what's your name? Solomon. Hi, where are you from? Bedford? Medford?
It's like 5 hours away.
Holy moose. Welcome. What's your name? Very nice. Same place? Awesome.
My name is Vina. I have my children who don't want to go to church.
They go now.
Called out. Welcome. Hi in the back.
Hi, my name is Gami Valencia. I work in Skipos.
Where's that?
Just about 45 minutes down up north, I guess.
Okay. Well, fantastic. I am going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here at this seminar. There are so many things that are on the schedule for this camp meeting, so I can only imagine why you have chosen to come to this one. And we'll get more into that in just a little bit. But a little bit about me, because it's always weird to come to a presentation and not know who you're talking to. So hi, my name is Linda. My last name is Biswas, like dishwash, but with a B, no H's. I am currently a children's pastor at Azure Hills Church in Grand Terrace, California, near Loma Linda. I live in Loma Linda. And my background in ministry has been very diverse. I always grew up thinking that I wanted to be a lifelong missionary. My parents were raised by missionaries in Bangladesh. That's where my family's from, next to India. And I grew up with all of the mission stories. I went on mission trips. I spent a year as a student missionary in college. I then, when I was chaplain at Lhasa University, spent a decade and a half of my life mentoring and sending out student missionaries. So my background in ministry comes from wanting to serve youth and young adults and understanding their passions and the things that make them thrive. And my education then has followed a random sort of a roadmap. Because I thought I was going to serve as a missionary, I got all my background to make sure that I was in it. So degrees in business and education and theology, overeducated a little bit, but a master's in each one of those. And my lifelong pursuit has been to help people encounter Jesus. And so for this seminar, taking a moment to talk about why young people are not wanting to go into the church is really important to me. And for us to discover what that means or what that looks like or what trends are happening in the world today that are causing this. This is part of the reason that I'm here, and I'm hoping it's part of the reason that you're here, so we can be a part of the equation together of figuring out what we can be doing as a church, what we should be doing as people who make up the church, and just making sure that we're living lives fully devoted to God. So, that's a little bit about me. I want to get to know a little bit about you. So, I actually need you, if you have your devices, to go ahead and pull out your cell phone, and we're going to do a little quiz together. I need you to please go to pollev.com/myname. pollev/Linda Biswas. And everyone let me know when you are there and we will begin. Everyone present? Ooh, it's not. It's a web address. It's pollev.com/my name, Linda.
When I go on my phone.
You would go to the internet. Like that again. poll.ev.com/Linda Biswas. poll.ev.com.
Is it cap sensitive?
It's not cap sensitive, no. This is helping me ensure that you don't forget my name. No, just kidding. poll.ev.com/Linda Biswas. Are we there? Anyone not there?
Yeah, you went too fast. I'm still.
Sorry, poll.ev.com.
Do you need our first and last name or just our first name?
It's going to be anonymous, so yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't matter. Or at least it should be. I clicked anonymous, so I'm...
Well, it did ask for our name, so I did enter that.
Interesting. Poll.ev.com is where you're going in the internet /Linda Biswas.
Two L's.
pollev.com.
Linda.
So is it supposed to keep moving along to the questions?
It is. I'm just making sure that we've got people on here.
It stopped at one and I had to go.
Yeah, because I haven't progressed it.
Gotcha.
We're doing this. Yeah, good question. We're doing this poll together.
Okay.
So each one of these, it's letting you know that people are logging in right now. So I'm just making sure everyone's got it. pollev.com/Linda Biswas.
You're not there. It's not you. I guess it kind of is. Yes, we are. I put 50. Well, I live further than you. So you're a local and I'm not.
You get it?
I don't think I'm going
Awesome.
Keep go.
Here we go then. A couple of getting to know you questions.
You see.
I just want to make sure everyone's on.
Yes, it's
Everyone.
Mine says it doesn't match any documents.
Friend, we might have missed it. pollev.com.
LLEV.com.
Go everywhere.
LINDAPISWAS.
Yes. Can I see your screen? Do you have your data on?
It says poll everywhere. Do you want us to download that?
You don't need to download anything. This is an interesting. Some of you are in. You're in on the question.
Oh, man.
Are all of you in?
Get out of here. Get out. Go back to
Question
the
one. Are we in? Your technology hates me. So we'll have you can verbalize with me. We're going to keep going. We'll just verbalize. So here we go. Distance. People are already answering. How did this happen? Distance traveled for camp meeting. So if you could look at your phone and enter in information, that would be fantastic. Did you guys already do this?
Yep.
Oh, this is where this came from. So, taking a moment to go there. 50% of you are local. Some of you can see Asia. 38%. Oh, that's the three of you, right? Coming from 5 hours away. Fantastic. Our gens represented here. I didn't think we were going to have any of our Gen Alpha. It's not often that they come to these types of things. But 40% of you here are from our Gen X. We have 40% from Silent Gen, 28 to 45, and we've got some Gen Z in here. So welcome everyone. Going on, how many kiddos do you have? 40% of you do not. I'm sorry?
I haven't been able to answer. It's not letting me go to next.
This is really good to know, especially for my tech talk this afternoon. Hey friend, we're doing a poll. If you want to go to pollev.com/Linda Biswas, we'll see if we can get some of you in here.
Oh, there we go.
60% have 3 or more kids. Otherwise, we have 0. So that's a really interesting spread. How would you rate your church attendance? Wow. There are all answers for weekly in here. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So we're moving forward, finding out. I read my Bible most days, 40%. One plus time, 20%. It's been still getting answers. It's been a second.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It's not as quick as you are.
Oh, sorry. I'll slow down for this next one. We'll see how many responses. It usually tells me how many percentage have answered, and I'm not seeing this on my end.
Because I just now got caught up to with 5, so the answers back the other way have changed.
Oh, look at it! Look at it changing as everyone is finishing.
We haven't finished. I'm on question 4.
I'm coming back to see if there's any others. There's my millennials. All right. So now I'm going to head on. So for the Bible, 1 plus times a week. It's been a second. Not surprised. Most days, every day. That's a pretty good spread right there. What kind of educational environment are your kids in for those that have kids? Adventist school, homeschool, public, or alternative ed? We're going to give you a moment to do this. For those of you who have just joined us, if you'd like to join our poll, we're at pollev.com/Linda Biswas. Feel free to join if you would like. Otherwise, watch on with us. We'll give you a little bit of time if you're not yet on this question. Could you give me a thumbs up if you've finished answering this question? I got 3 thumbs.
That's good because most of us only have 2.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I was snorting.
No, it's good. It's good. Give me a thumbs up again if you've been able to answer the question. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Fantastic. All right, moving on. One word descriptor that sums up how your experience with church. One word that describes church for you. Just type it in and hit enter, and we'll see what it's like. Some words that you are sharing. You are engaged in leadership. You think church is amazing. That's a strong word, amazing. Active, blessed, family, lifestyle. It's important. This lets me know that there's only 7 of you who have answered so far. 8 of you. I'm going to give us a moment to see if there are a few more. A few more thoughts on this? I'm going to scooch on over. And then what prompted you to attend this camp meeting seminar? Myself, my child is not active in church. Oh, forced. Preach. Concern for adult children and grandchildren are some of the responses here. And what Adventist norms do you wish your child or children family were engaged in? Keeping the Sabbath conservative, being more conservative, understanding conservative, Sabbath or the Bible are some of our responses here. I'll give us a couple more minutes if anyone wants, or a couple more moments, see if anyone types in anything else. All right, we're gonna keeping Sabbath conservative, 2 conservatives, family worship, things we wish we were engaged in. Okay, so that's a few things. I'm gonna take that and keep going. What is one thing your family is winning at? Despite everything else that's going on, one thing that is just going really well for you and your family. Happiness, communication, unity. Oh, fantastic. All right. Friends, thanks for participating in that. I am going to head back to our presentation now that we've taken a little bit of time to understand who we are and where we're coming from. And I know our neighbor next door is incredibly boisterous, and I can be as well. So if you can't hear me, let me know. I'm a children's pastor. I can speak to the people outside. But I just want you to know, like, if you can't hear me, do let me know, because this is not on. So friends, those of you who are here, and from the responses that we had from the survey, many of you are concerned that your kids, either in the church, yours specifically, or those that you are mentoring, are not coming to church. They do not want to come to church, or they are no longer engaged at all. If this is a concern for you, can you raise your hand? Would you raise your hand? Yeah. I want to hear from you, but it's going to be a really rapid fire. What do you think some of the reasons are?
Boring. No idea.
It's boring. No idea.
They get uncomfortable questions when they go to church.
Ooh, uncomfortable questions.
I no longer believes in God.
No longer believes.
I have a daughter that says that she'd go to any church but not an Adventist church.
Oh, any church but not. So something's happened, right?
She was raised in the church.
Sorry?
There's no class their age.
Yeah.
Or no friends.
No friends. There's not an opportunity there to be in church. Okay. You're right on trend. And I wanted to take some time to talk about the Christian Protestant church in general for a moment, and because it affects what's happening within our Adventist church as well. So let's take a moment to look at a little bit of data. We can see majority of this data comes from Barna and Pew Research, who have been studying churches and doing research on youth, adults, and culture, things that have been happening in our churches. So weekly church attendance, we can see state of the church. From 1993, we used to have, of all people who reported themselves to be self-identified as Christian, we had at least 45% in 1993, and now as of 2020, because COVID has ruined everything. Data is so skewed for the last 2 years, so I'm not including COVID numbers in what I'm talking about today. But starting right up to mid of the pandemic, 2020, we see church attendance is dropped nationwide. This is for US. This is not reflective of things happening in South America, where attendance is actually going up. Asia, locations where things are actually going up. This is based on US. 29% weekly church attendance. If we look at church attendance by generation, this blue line is our more elderly population. The yellow is our boomers. Gen X is the light blue, and our millennials are in the pink at the bottom. So if you look at this spread, I don't know, does this surprise anyone that numbers are actually down amongst all of the age groups? Not just. Have you seen this in your own churches? That people are not, even prior to pandemic, right? People are just not coming. Yeah. We looked at, in this research, a couple of different areas. What are some of the things that are still happening or not happening? So one of the things to look at was Bible reading. What are the different generations? Where do they land when it comes to reading your Bible? Again, the blue all the way over on the left is every day, then several times a week, then once a week. Once a month is in the light yellow. 3 or 4 times a year is in the golden. Once or twice a year is in the pink. Red is less than once a year, and I don't know what that means, less than once a year. That's a large category for, and then never and not sure. So when we're looking at this data, 1999 to 2019, this bottom category is 37% that are not reading. And this research again is for people who are proclaiming Christianity, that they are self-identified as Christians, yet 37% are not reading their Bible in any form or fashion. So we see that Bible reading, this is in all persons surveyed. So this is adults, young adults, millennials.
Can I ask you to clarify that?
Oh,
Did I hear you say that this is just Christians here?
This is just Christians, not Adventists, not any other faith denomination. This is just Christian Protestant.
And it's not unbelievers?
In North America, not unbelievers. This is identified Christian. I know, right? It would make more sense if there were unbelievers or people who were leaving the church or things like that, but this is within the churches, those who identify as Christian, this number. If we look at prayer in America, again, this is a study from 1996 to 2020. People, again, identify as Christian, Protestant, North America. We see this number across the ages also declining from 83% 20 years ago down to 69% here in America. And motivation for church attendance. Practicing Christians and then church adults. Practicing Christians, the top line, are those who identify as Christian and actually attend church. Church adults are those who attend at least 3 or 4 times a year, not including major holidays like Christmas or Easter, when everyone seems to come back. But when we look at these two groups, the teal color is, do you usually attend church because you enjoy doing it, because you feel like you have to, or you do it out of habit? The practicing Christians, those actually are coming to church, say that they enjoy it, 82%. 9% say they have to. 9% say they do it out of habit. Churched adults, those that do still go to church a few times a year and consider themselves engaged with the church, because they do still go. 65% do it because they enjoy it. 17% because they have to. 15% because of habit, and 3% don't do this. Like, church isn't for them anymore, even though they consider themselves churched individuals. And again, this is millennials through adults that are categorized here. Now, numbers that might skew this research, just to be transparent about this, is the fact that obviously the habit or have-tos are going to include children. So if you have millennials that don't have a driver's license and they're still going to church with their families and they're in this study, those are have-tos because they're getting dragged along. Or they're pastors or pastors' wives or pastors' husbands, and we make them come with us. So that might be part of what's going on here. Tired of the usual church experience. In this one, we can see practicing Christians, those that go nearly every single week, self-identified, they feel like they're still part of the church, but may not be practicing at all, and then church adults, again, attend a few times a year. Tired of the experience, strongly agree, and those are the ones that I want you all to look at. 15% of Christians, Protestant Christians who go to church every week, 15% strongly agree that they are tired. And those are the ones that are still going, that they continue to go. Versus 22% of those that are the occasional church attendee. So even for those that are most faithful, the weekly attenders, 15%, strongly agree that they're tired of it. 30% are somewhat, so it's 45%. It's nearly half of our membership across the U.S. who are tired of church, but are still there. But will they be in a year or two if 40% of them are thus tired? 45%. So, relevance of the church. This is one of the things that I know speaking with youth in college, especially when I was a chaplain at Gloucester University for 13 years, and I remember watching the trends of the college students that would come to chapel, one, because it's required, but then those who would come to non-required worships in the evenings or Friday night, and how much smaller those numbers would be of the non-required on an Adventist campus. And this goes across all of our campuses. The numbers would vary, but we would see dramatically less students. At Walla Walla, at Southern, at Union, wherever we were, they were not coming on Friday night for Vespers unless there was something gripping, unless a group of friends were coming, unless it was required, as it is at some of our campuses. And when I would ask our students, why are you not coming? The number one answer, especially in the more recent years, was that it was no longer relevant. 15 years ago, the answer was, I'm tired of church, because they were like the freshmen, sophomores who had just left home and they're finding this experience on their own. What does it mean to be in church without my parents making me go? So they're experiencing church for the first time without their family. Then, as your juniors and seniors, we started getting into, it's really different from what I grew up with at home. I'm not feeling comfortable, or they have entered into a new scene. College students make up their mind whether or not they're going to go to these worship services within the first month of being on campus. So if the first 2 weeks of chapel isn't cool or meaningful or relevant for them, they're not coming back unless they are invited, or unless they've created a relationship with someone, or unless the cool thing is happening and they're actually there. First 2 weeks on the Adventist University College campuses. But relevance has become a really important part of what our young people today are looking for. Why? Why should I go to church? And that question right there is a really scary reality means that there is a question about what does God even have to do with my life? There's a relationship issue going on there if we're asking the relevance of like why church. So some studies here to share with you. The bottom numbers are the ones that I want to spend some time looking at. Would you agree or disagree with the statement, church is no longer relevant in today's world? Definitely agree that it is no longer relevant. Adults, 15%. Practicing Christians, only 10% think it's not relevant. But let's look at our practicing millennials. Practicing millennials, which means these are millennials that are going to church every single week, 41% no longer think church is relevant for today. They're going, but 41% no longer think it's relevant. 29% of the practicing Christian Gen Xers and 11% practicing Christian boomers even. 11%. This is huge. What does this say for us then when we are asking youth or our kids to come to church with us? If it's a place that doesn't bring meaning, if there's not a transformational occurrence that's happening there each week, it's now just a task. It's something for them to do on their day off from school or from work or whatever. It's now become a chore. Is there something that we can do about it? And the answer is yes, there is something that we can do about it, and it's going to be individually and as a collective whole that we look and tackle this problem. So when we're asking this question, help my child doesn't want to come to church, we have data to show it's not just the millennials, adults are into this as well. So what do we do so that church is relevant, so church is important, so church is a place where we're experiencing God, experiencing each other, and having something happen in our lives. So here are a couple of things to consider. Churches that are active in young adult ministry, youth and young adult ministry, are looking at these six core principles. And I'm sharing them with you as a children's pastor who was youth and collegiate before in my former years of ministry. These are some of the things. We're looking for our leadership. We're actively looking for the leadership. We're empathizing with the youth. We're making sure that Jesus' message is central. We're creating warm relationships. We're prioritizing them everywhere in what we do, and we're being best neighbors. These are 6 core commitments of church youth ministries. This applies to families. This applies to you. This applies to individuals in your church that care as well. So let me go into that with you. Keychain Leadership. One of the things that we are seeing in our churches right now is that there is centralized authority within our churches. And some of you can see it in your churches. There are the literal key holders, the deacons, the elders, the pastors, the people who have the media crew, the people who literally have the keys and get to make things happen. How often are we looking for a young adult or youth or kiddo who is in the primary ages to be the one we turn to at church to ask for help? This is one thing that I personally am working on in my ministry. I need to ask my kids first. And it's a very different paradigm shift when I walk into my primary 1 Sabbath school and I ask the kiddos for help. So on Sabbath morning, if I need something done, I ignore the parents and I go straight to the kids. This lets them know that they get to have a voice, that someone in leadership is actually asking for their advice, and this makes a world of difference. And I will tell you, when I was in academy, I'm originally from Tennessee, and I moved to California, and I went from a teeny tiny class of like 23 kids. I know it's not teeny tiny, but normal for me, to Loma Linda Academy, where I had over 300 kids in my class, and I just felt thrown into this world of chaos. And I remember walking into my youth room, and the youth pastor, who I had never met, actually had reached out and like shook my hand and then pulled me onto stage, and what was happening? And he engaged me with a skit that they were doing on stage. He didn't know who I was. I didn't actually even know he was the youth pastor. I found that out later. But that intentionality of, hey, I need your help, can you come up on stage with me, really spoke to me. And a year later, I became a TM, a teen minister. And as a teen minister, one of the most unique things has happened, and I don't think it happens in very many churches. The youth pastor gave me, and each one of the teen ministers, a key to the youth room. Like, we could go to the church anytime, day or night, walk into the youth room where thousands of dollars of equipment are stored, where food and things that could be stolen were stored, but this youth pastor was telling us that he trusted us and it was up to us to run the room. He helped schedule it, he helped schedule us, but it was our job, and we had a checklist of things that we had to do as a teen minister. We had to tell a children's story in one of the other departments. We had to serve communion at least once in the big church service. We had to do prayer at least once for the big church service. We had to schedule in our Sabbath school classroom other teens to come play, do the music and do the skit or story, offering, like do the entire programming. We had to, as teenagers, sit on the church board at least one time. 16, sitting at church, Loma Linda University church board meetings. That's an odd thing. It doesn't happen very often, but it was one of those things that really spoke to me and let me know that I belonged as a teen. I literally had keys to the church. And this was my youth pastor sharing authority, spreading out responsibility. So if someone needed something, they knew on Sabbath mornings, you don't ask the youth pastor, you ask one of the teen ministers. And that's huge. So where does this level of leadership, where in your household can you share a key? It doesn't have to be a literal key. It could be a figurative one. But mentally, how do you actually engage youth or young adults so that they feel empowered, that they know that they're needed? Don't do lip service. Actually sharing that they're needed. Empathy today. Ask questions, don't assume. How many of us in our churches, in our home, have actually sat down with a millennial and younger, because we're into younger, and asked them what they thought about church? Had conversations about what do you want to do. My first Sabbath at my new church, Azure Hills, I walked into the youth room, early teens room, and I met a couple of the students, and I said, if each of the pastors weren't here next Sabbath, what would you want to do? And they all had an answer. Oh, I'd want to help run AV. Oh, I'd want to help with kids' room. And one of them was like, I'm a little nervous. I'd help a friend help. But each one of them was willing to do something. If none of the leaders, if none of the adults were around, what would they do? So taking time, instead of going, teens are lazy, our young adults aren't really into things, actually ask them questions. And I had this. Did you know Jesus was asked 183 questions in the New Testament, but he stopped to ask questions of others 307 times. Random tidbit. Also depends on translation. But it's one of those things. Spend more time asking questions versus assuming what it is that our teens want. Jesus' message as central, taking it seriously and actually living it. This one's huge. And looking especially into the tech talk that I'm doing later on this afternoon, there's data from that one. I should have pulled it into this one. But how often after church are our kids involved in something spiritual? While I was putting this presentation together, I remember last week I kept humming the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for us. Anyone know that song? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for us. The 7th is for G. And I was like, that's such a terrible song. Because in the song, I mean, I love the song, but in the song I realized it literally only had one day that was for Jesus and all the other days were for us. What kind of a message? I mean, I get it. But like, what kind of a message is that? And in the technology talk that I'm doing later on, it asks the question, how many of your kids, what are the activities that your kids do after school? Oh, they're playing outside, they're watching TV, they're doing homework, they're on tech. Reading the Bible or engaging in something in Scripture was like 8% of kids who ever, after school, are engaged in something like that. Jesus' message isn't necessarily central talk in our daily lives. What did you learn at school today? How are you doing? But how often, outside of like that half hour, 15-minute nightly worship, if your family has nightly worship, are we actually talking about it? How has the gift of grace impacted your daily family life? Is that a question? Like, how has Jesus seen you today? I just finished doing VBS at my church. I'm still a little shell-shocked. I don't know where all the kids came from. There were over 500 of them. I'm still sleepy. I'm recovering. I haven't returned things yet. Things happen. But I remember asking them each night. I gave them bracelets, and the bracelet said, "Watch for God." And I wanted to be a daily reminder. Like, they wear them all week, right? Every time you look down, it's a reminder to watch for God. And at the end of the evening, I would ask kids to come up and share with me, how did you see Jesus today at VBS? We would do this last year as well for our Vespers on Friday night. We would ask students to tell us, how did you see Jesus this week? It's such a simple concept, but it's not one that we often practice. Like, if Jesus is our life source, if Jesus is the reason that we exist, then there should be billions of answers from everyone like, I was able to breathe while walking up the hill today. There was money still on my cash card. So-and-so texted me. You know, like, there's all of these things. But sometimes sharing a blessing is really difficult. If you call my cell phone ever, my message says, ray of sunshine. Share with me a blessing that you've had so far this week. And then leave your message, is what my message says. And it's so interesting to hear people's shocked responses like, I don't know how I've been blessed. It's not part of our makeup to think that way. We don't often ask people, except for testimony Sabbaths, when big, huge testimony happens, but for the small blessings. Like, I had enough gas to get here today. There was this moment where I encountered this person and it meant so much. What would it look like if we actually brought that back into our homes and made it more central? The message of Jesus. Making it personal. Making it daily. So it's not a miraculous thing that happens on Sabbath, but like intentionally looking for Jesus every day. Warm relationships. Don't go for the hip, cool religion. You as parents or family, your students, your kiddos are not looking for that. They're looking for authenticity. Again, it's part of the relevance thing. What makes this worth it for me? Why should I be engaged? Create an environment for them to explore and respond in love. Can people in your church, can kids in your home disagree with you? disagree with teachings of the Adventist church and still be loved. I met someone in the hotel lobby last night that I'm staying at, and I told myself, I was like, you have things to work on, just stay in your room and work on it. And I had this like, no, just go get food and sit in the lobby. So I did. I put my earbuds in to be one of those people who doesn't pay attention to folks. But the music got really loud outside. I was like, okay, earbuds off. And when I took my earbuds off, I heard a person crying near me. I was like, ignore them. It's a stranger in the lobby who's crying. Ignore them. Stranger in the lobby crying. Former youth and college pastor. Hey, are you okay? And it turned into a 3-hour conversation with a collegiate about how they had just been kicked out of their home because they chose to leave the denomination of their church. They're still a Christian. They are weekly attending a different church. However, they've gone against the church of their family. Is there room in our churches today, in our homes today, for our kids actually to be able to ask us the hard questions, or to share that they don't know, or they don't care, or they're not interested, without you trying to convince them, without you going, no, this is the right way, just do it long enough and you'll get into it. What does it look like in your family to create an environment for them to explore, actually explore their faith, so it becomes a personal faith? What does it look like to model an embracing and non-judgmental love? I had some college students ask me one time, how many of the Adventist beliefs do I not need, or how many of the Adventist beliefs do I need to believe in and still be Adventist? Have you ever heard that? Have any of you ever wondered that? 28, that's a lot of fundamental beliefs on one major belief for us as Adventists. How many do I need to actually believe in to be Adventist? If you broke this down, we have some really big ones. Sabbath, State of the Dead, right? Second Coming. Those are kind of our big ones. But those are only 3 of the 28. So what about the other ones? What happens when they question? What happens if they don't agree? Listen, I'm an Adventist pastor. I will tell you, there are some that I also don't agree. But I am still an Adventist pastor. And I am still a Christian. Bottom line, I still have a relationship with Jesus, even if there are some things that I don't agree with, the things that my dad taught me about this faith growing up. It gets to be my relationship with Jesus. I get to explore. I get to have this intimate relationship with Jesus and actually make it mine, not my dad's religion. Prioritizing young people means young people must play a load-bearing role. We've already covered this a little bit, but this is something that you as families, we're looking for you to make it a priority. If you do not, I used to have conversations with friends about this, and I wonder, no, I'm not going to have you raise your hands, but in my How Adventist Are You series that I've done with other friends, one of the questions is, how many of you have friends that are non-Adventist? And it's always been interesting to hear what the response is to that. Majority of Adventists, depending where in America you are, it's different by region, most Adventists only have Adventist friends. And if most Adventists only have Adventist friends, that means we are not spreading the gospel message. It's really important that we have friends that are non-Adventists. It's really important that we have people that are not just acquaintances, close friends. These are people that we're developing relationships with. These are people that we say that we value, but are different from us. An introspective moment. How many of you have close, intimate friends who aren't Adventist? how many of you then also have youth or young adults in your life that aren't practicing Adventists or wanting to escape Adventism because right now they're being forced to, like we had seen in one of the slides? If we are wanting to see young adults have this relationship with Jesus, we have to prioritize in our youth. And in most studies, we see that the majority of families choose churches where there is a vibrant young adult, teen, children's ministry. It's really hard to be in churches that don't have that. However, this is our time where we're supposed to be modeling for youth, young adults to be leaders of the church, but if we're not investing, my previous church that I was in did not have a youth or young adult pastor. There was no children's pastor, no youth pastor, no young adult pastor, but there was an outreach pastor, an admin pastor, a senior pastor, and I was so confused. Oh, and we were also paying the music director, the worship director. And I remember coming into that church, and my question was, where are the youth? Oh, well, we don't have any youth here, so we don't have a youth pastor. And I was like, that's why you don't have any youth here, because you haven't invested in them. There's no place for them. So why would they be here? How do we make sure that we are prioritizing our youth? Majority, and this is not me being biased as a children's pastor, this is according to studies, 58%, let me not say it, I didn't write it down, I just have numbers and figures in my head. But the most important work a church can do is to invest in young people in the church. And when you invest in young people in the church, you are investing in all of the church. Because you're investing in families, and you're investing in relationships, and you're investing in your tech, and you're investing in your, right? All of these things happen when you invest in your young children. So it is making sure that we are prioritizing them. What does that actually look like for your family this week? What is one way you can prioritize, give load-bearing responsibilities to your youth to equip them to be engaged in the church? And then also best neighbors. Don't pass the blame. Neighbor well as a family. How do we teach our youth to be best neighbors? Well, part of it is us becoming best neighbors ourselves. This is not focused on just doing community service or being missionaries. It encompasses the whole thing. What does it look like for our family, for our community, for our church to be best neighbors to someone else? What are the different things that we can do? Well, we're looking at ourselves. Have you considered for the development, for the spiritual formation of your child and your family, of inviting another family over for dinner? Youth are wanting to hang out with other youth, so are you inviting other youth to come over to the house so they have people to hang out with? Are we having those conversations? Are we getting to share this with other families where this is happening? Have you considered having your family adopt a senior? These intergenerational mixes that we see between our kids and elder generations have made dramatic impact in the lives of our kids. So is that something we could do as a family? Local community activism, talking about relevance. Is your family engaged in some sort of activism? Have you taken a stand as a family for something that you want to be known for, that you want to be seen doing? That came out wrong. Something that you want to do to better your family, to better your community. What does that look like? And then also having a global world view. What are other Christians going through? What are people of other faith communities going through? How can I be a part of that as well? So that I'm carrying the message, so that our family is carrying the message that Jesus wants for us to carry, so that we can be people who love others like Jesus asked us to love. So, getting more information. This is a lot, I know, but I'm hoping this is a little helpful for us. One of the things that we realize is that we need to change the way our families talk about theology. Oftentimes, parents have told me, as a college chaplain, if only my youth would stop smoking, drinking, sex, doing drugs, or just have a better temperament. If only they would do that, would stop or refrain from those things, then they would be a better Christian. How do we view our kids who are in the church? Are we saying if they would just stop that, then we know that they'd be better and they'd be back in the church? Or even if they're already in the church, if they would just stop that, then they'd be closer to God. If only our youth would engage in Sabbath school. Like, this is a prayer that you have. God, just, my youth is not there. Please bring them back to Sabbath school. If only they were a youth leader, wouldn't that be fantastic? My youth actually cares about church and is coming to church and is a youth leader. That they would do devotionals, that they'd go on mission trips, that they'd share their faith. I used to have parents call me and ask me if their dorming child, their dorming collegiate, was attending Sabbath school with me. Parents calling a college chaplain to ask if their kids are going to church. It's heart-wrenching and a little funny all at the same time, because they don't have a relationship with their child to be able to have those honest conversations with them. They're asking us to be their children's spies. That's a little bit how I felt. Like, are they coming? And I realized in the first couple years I messed up. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of your child before. Worst thing as a chaplain to be able to tell the parent, I don't know who that kid is. I've never seen them before. It hurts relationships. One of the things that we get into when we're talking to our teens about church is such bad theology. It's actually just sin management. If we need to redefine how we're talking about Jesus in our churches. Stopping behaviors, adding behaviors isn't what makes us better Christians, isn't what brings kids back to church. So we need to stop doing sin management. Spiritual disciplines do not make us righteous because we do them. They create a space for us to trust and encounter God. I would tell our student missionaries when we would go on mission trips. Any of you ever been on a mission trip before? I am shocked at the number of hands that went up because they were so few. Hold on a second. If you've ever been a missionary or been on a mission trip, would you raise your hand again? Oregon Conference. I'm coming back to run mission trips. What is that? But I would tell our students, oftentimes we would go on a building trip, right? We're going to go help build a wall around a school, or we're going to go help dig a well, or we're going to whatever, right? Like, this is oftentimes how we described it. We're going to go do this thing. And the students would be focused on that. And I remember we were in Benin, Africa, Horn of Africa, right there. And I remember 3 weeks, we were there for 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, I was having a thank you dinner for all of our volunteers, for the translators, for the people who had been our drivers, for those who had been making our food, all these types of things. And I brought certificates because I wanted to hand out like trophies, or like I told the students, I was like, you can create something, but whatever it is, like I want you to be able to present something, an award to your person for like best, safest driver, or craziest driver, or like most fluent, whatever the award was. And I remember the night of the thank you dinner, 2 of my 21 students had an award prepared for someone who had been in their life for the last 3 weeks. And I pulled them aside before we started the dinner, and I was like, what is happening? And they told me, we don't know their names. I was like, you've been here for 3 weeks. We're even these people, and you don't even know the names of the people who have been ministering alongside you. I was so shocked, and it was such a moment for me of clarity and understanding that when we are serving other people, the tasks that we're going to do, if there's like an amen clinic or if there's a whatever it is, those tasks aren't the goal. The people are the goal, right? That task is our opportunity to encounter human. So if there's a wall to be built and we don't happen to finish building the wall, but we know every single person, we've prayed with a person, we've taken time to share ourselves with another person, then we have succeeded on that mission trip, even though the wall didn't get built. Same thing for our kiddos. If our kiddos aren't marking off some of these things we wish that they were doing, but we have an experience with them and they have an experience with God, then they are winning. Practicing obedience. Obedience is our response to trusting God. Seeing activities and conversations as an opportunity to know and to trust God. Is there space for our students, for us to be practicing obedience to God? And I know this one, when I've asked college students about that, how do you practice obedience to God? They give me the thou shalt not list of Adventism. You all know the thou shalt not list of Adventism. Thou shalt not watch TV or any such thing an hour before sunset, 2 hours before sunset, at all during the Sabbath hours, right? Thou shalt not go swimming on Sabbath. Thou shalt not go out to eat, go get gas, spend your credit card or cash. Thou shalt not enter a store. Thou shalt not. It's the thou shalt nots, right? So when I ask young adults and youth, how do you practice obedience to God, they give me the thou shalt not list. We have turned into the thou shalt not church. If this is the only thing that our youth and young adults can identify as a practice or a belief system for our church, that these are the things that we don't do, versus these are the things we get to do. If I asked you right now, what are the things that we get to do in our relationship with Jesus, how much easier would it be for you to tell me a list there versus a thou shalt not list? Which one's easier? The thou shalt not list. Because we've practiced it. We've preached it. We've made it requirements at our school. I remember they'd lock the laundry room an hour before sunset. I was out of underwear one weekend because it was in the laundry room at the dorm, and they had locked it for the weekend or for the Sabbath hours. So I was like, well, that's going to make church special tomorrow. We practiced the thou shalt not church versus making exciting and understanding what it means of what we get to do to practice obedience to God, practicing trust in God, practicing faith in God, practicing giving testimony in God. These are not things that are normal for us. What would happen? Identity and faith formation. I'm going to say something controversial here. Just label me a Southern Californian, if that makes it. Label me a female, Asian, Southern Californian pastor, whatever labels you want to give me. But in our identity and faith formation for kids, youth, and young adults, oftentimes our goal is to get them baptized. Right? How do we track that we're doing well with youth and young adult? Well, we got how many baptized this year? This is how many booties are in the seats on Sabbath morning. We're winning! And it stops there. How many of us in our family life and our church life have continuing studies with our young people after baptism? My controversial statement is, I believe that baptism is the beginning of your journey with Jesus, not the end. My controversial is, if a student has an encounter with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, like this weekend at camp meeting, I will baptize a student this weekend at camp meeting. I'm not waiting for 6 months of study. I'm not waiting until I've gone through the 28 with them. If they share with me that they have had an encounter with Jesus and want to get to know more, I'm baptizing them right now. We as a church don't often practice this. And I've been in so many countries and have done evangelistic series in over 20 countries where I have been told, well, this person is still drinking or smoking, or they're still in a relationship with someone, they are living with someone, so we can't baptize them. They're not ready. And I say this for countries abroad, but I have been in churches in California where well, they haven't shown that they've had a transformation with the Holy Spirit yet. So they're still not ready, so we're still not going to baptize them. So we're closing the doors for people to actually have a lifestyle of formation with Jesus. I'm going to pet peeve for a moment. One of my biggest pet peeves as an Adventist pastor is the number of students I had, number of collegiates I had who wanted to go and serve as a year-long student missionary, but were told that they could not serve because they had not yet been baptized for 2 years. That's a rule of the General Conference? I mean, they began being more lenient, but if they're not baptized for at least 2 years, that they shouldn't be a missionary. Or if a kiddo wants to work at summer camp, but they're not yet baptized, they go on the back burner of the list versus being one of the first ones that are considered. Friends, I think they need to be the first ones that are considered. Let's have them go with their peers who are baptized. Let them go and have these opportunities. What does it look like when a teen or young adult collegiate says they want to be involved and then leadership in the church is telling them no? Their identity and their faith formation does not end at baptism. Our identity, our faith formation as adults does not end when you were baptized. It is something that is a continual process. Affirm character growth in your kids. If they've made a bad decision one day and a good one the next, good job. Because it is tough to make good decisions today. Know that it takes time. Lead with humility. When was the last time you stopped being the parent or the adult, not stopped, but took a moment to empathize with them and actually shared an issue you were going through with them? Letting them know that it's okay to be human because you're having that conversation with them and modeling a relationship with God. This one, I think, is one that we see most everywhere for older generations, where my generation and older, we grew up seeing our parents with the Bible and their quarterly and their Ovaltine or Roma somewhere at home. We post them, Carib cough, whatever the things are. You know the things. We would get to literally see a physical modeling of someone in a relationship with God. And other than getting to see someone pray or getting to see someone read their Bible, what are the ways that we're modeling to our teens, to our youth, that we have a relationship with God and that they can have a relationship with God as well? Outside of those two visible things, what do we actually have in practice in our homes today that our kids get to watch happen and do as well? So, identity faith formation, it's a continuing thing. Family faith development, talk about your faith. I think most collegiates tell me it is a weird thing when their parents sit down to dinner even with them, let alone having a family conversation around the dinner table. It's not a normal thing for most collegiates, young adults anymore, for them to be able to just sit down and actually have conversations as a family. Encourage individual expression. We are seeing more and more teens and young adults at some of our churches come not in church attire. Is that okay? Woo! This is a different crowd. Yeah, it's winning if they're there, right? Like, it's such an incredible thing for them just to be there. So let's not worry about the outer appearance, but what is happening on their internal experience. Family faith development ideas. Seek out faith ideas from other families. It might sound like there's so many things that you need to do, but these are options and opportunities. Choose one. Choose something that works for your family. And if it doesn't work, throw it out. If your teens or young adults don't respond to it, throw it out. Ask them what they want to do and try that. And if it doesn't work, throw it out and ask them again and do that and go on. But what would happen if we were actually having these conversations and we're talking to people in their peer group, not your peer group, their peer group, and forming these bonds and developing conversation rituals? Is it commonplace for you once a week to be able to sit down? Do you have a Jamba Juice date where you actually get to go out and have conversation? Is there a no phone policy at dinner where it's not a forced thing but a fun thing? If you're taking something away from them, give them something. Don't just say no phones at dinner. Make it like, hey, it's game night at the dinner table, right? Make it something where they want to be there if you're taking something that's normal for them out. But what does your conversation ritual with a youth or young adult look like? Are you having them? Do you have a youth or young adult that you were talking to outside of your own kiddos? And family faith together. Here are some ways that your family can grow. In your family faith formation and identity, have you considered serving once a month together as a family? Framing it where it's an exciting thing that you're getting to do. We as a family are here's an issue in our community. We are going to respond to this issue because why Jesus? Like, how is Jesus a part of that response? What makes what you do an act of Christian devotion and obedience versus any other person who helps out? There are people who go on mission trips that aren't Christian mission trips or Adventist mission trips. They're humanitarian. What makes them different than your response for going on a trip? Is Jesus a part of that equation? Do something for church together as a family. Choose to collect offering together or to be greeters but how do your kids, how does your family unit get to model being a family that is engaged in practice? Again, other than your kids seeing you in prayer or having family devotion night, what are you modeling? What are you practicing? A family play date. I had a mom who's burnt out from church and burnt out from media and just burnt out. She has 4 boys. Pray for her. And she has broken the habit of going to church. It's one of those things that is common for most people, especially now with the pandemic. But she feels guilt because she is that was one of the studies we had shown. She is someone who is self-identified Christian, used to be a practicing every week, but now is an attender who goes every couple of months. But she has guilt because of her upbringing. And she said, I just want to take my family to nature. Is that okay? And I was like, of course it's okay, but frame it. Why are you choosing to go to the beach this Sabbath or to go hiking this Sabbath versus going to church? Because church is people, not the building. So frame it. A family play date can be church. Today we are going to go experience Jesus. Watch for God. And tell your kids, we're gonna go into the redwoods, we're gonna go into the whatever Mount Hood, I don't know what's around here, I don't know here. But we're gonna go to things. You know the things. But you frame it and why you're choosing to do that. It can still be about Jesus without being in church. and ask your kids to watch for God, and then have that conversation over lunch or after dinner. How did you see Jesus today? And if they need more direction, give them more direction so that they are actively resourced in being able to see the work of the Holy Spirit in the day, even though they're not in the traditional church setting. But people are the church, not the building. Family together dinner, family and friends worship. Invite other people to come over for worship. Sing at worship. Let your kids run worship, not the adult. The kids. What do the kids want to do for worship? How do they want to pray? What do they, these are some of the family faith together development things that we can do. This one is big, and I want to know if anyone has ever thought about this. Fill in the blank. When your kids are going on a field trip, there needs to be one adult for every 5 kids. This is what we hear most, right? If you're on a band trip or choir trip or whatever tour, history tour, whatnot, that there usually needs to be 1 to 5 for the elementary, 1 to 10, or 1 to 15 for the academy age kids. But what if we flipped it? What if we created a space in the church where it's 5 to 1? Your teen, your youth, your young adult had 5 people to your 1 kid. Not as a chaperone, in their life. What if there were 5, godparents? We don't do that very much in our Adventist Christian tradition, but what if there were 5 people who actively adopted your child, and they were people who sent cards? That's old. Send texts. Cards are great. Yeah. Sent cards. What if there were people who invited them over for dinner? If there were 5 people who showed up to their basketball games? If there were 5 people who offered to take them to a drive-in? 5 people in their life who they knew they could call if they needed someone. We often look at it 1 to 5, but what if we flipped it? 5 people to your 1 kiddo. You are not the only sole mentor for your kids. What would that do for us in our churches? If our kids knew there are 5 people in this church who literally I have their number in my cell phone. If I came to church and there were 5 people who were actively coming up to hug me at some point during the service. If I came to church and there were 5 people who are asking me to be actively engaged in something, how would that transform our church? Would your kids start coming back if there were 5 authentic relationships that they had there, that were outside of their youth pastor, that's outside, it could include aunt and uncles, but if it was outside, people who are members of your church who authentically, not to save them, not to get them to get involved in other spiritual disciplines, but actually cared for them, would that make a difference? 5 people who were sending them food every week. 5, right? What would that look like? Be intentional about the relationships we're building as a church. Best neighbors. Coming back to this service model, because I'm so passionate about it. In this study, we were looking at youth, young adults, and when asked reasons why they chose not to serve, they didn't want to engage in something. 18%, it's just not for me. 15% said, I just want to hang out with friends. 14 said, I don't have enough free time. 14%, I don't know how to get started. 8%, I want to see concrete results. That's really easy to fix. What if we created service opportunities that were a group of friends that went out together, so it became a part of the rhythm of life, so it became something that was fun, that they got to do with their peers. It was purposeful. I started taking my college students out to serve with Habitat for Humanity. And it was one of the favorite events that we would do as a campus family, because they got to know the need. There is a family who is not able to be very mobile. They need help painting their home. We are going to go and be a unit that goes in and meets this person and helps take care. And the kids would come out and they would paint. Now here's the thing. Here's a kicker, controversial. We would paint before church on Sabbath. We would go at 6 o'clock in the morning in our jeans and our t-shirts, and we would go paint a house, and we would be done by like 10 o'clock, and then we would go straight to Sabbath school and to church. The teens were showing up in their jeans and their t-shirts on Sabbath morning, and then they would go hang out afterwards. Those Sabbaths were the Sabbaths that were the most highly attended by our collegiates at church, because they were coming together for a common purpose. They were getting to hang out and do something that was purposeful, that was fun, that was with their peers, while engaging in a need in the community that they got to see right away. My church shut that down. Why are we having kids do work on Sabbath? No, they're serving on Sabbath. Why are you allowing them to come in their painted clothes on Sabbath? They're coming to church on Sabbath. When we shut down the program, the kids are like, can we go by ourselves? We won't come to church afterwards then if they don't want us. And we lost so many kids because they no longer felt welcomed to make a difference in the community. How can we be best neighbors? How can we encourage students and young adult youth in being best neighbors? Final thing, friends. So many things that can happen, but the final tidbit that I wanted to share with you is just to give them to God. It's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to ensure that your child is safe. It is your responsibility to share and to model Jesus, but it is the work of the Holy Spirit to encounter that child, for that child to encounter Jesus. And that's really rough. That can be really tough. I just shared all this information. There are all these things that we can do to bring kids back to our church, but we've just seen reasons why they don't want to come, and things that churches are trying, and things that parents can do. But honestly, I don't want anyone to walk away going, I can't do it, because you can. Give them Jesus. Pray, 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 pray for them. And trust that the Holy Spirit is at work. Trust that Jesus sees them. Trust that they are being surrounded by God of the universe who loves them so completely. And this, friends, is the greatest thing that we can do for our youth. If you want to try one of the other things, try. Don't implement all billion things, all of the data, and try to counteract the data. Choose one thing that works for your family and pray them through it. Galatians 5 says, "For through the Spirit we eagerly await by faith the righteousness for which we hope. For in Christ Jesus, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love." Love your kids. Pray for your kids. Love your kids. Pray for your kids. And talk to them. Empower them. Give them the keys. Make Jesus important. Talk about Jesus at home. Let this be something they see modeled in your life. And maybe, friends, we will realize that the question is not help, or the expression is not help. My child does not want to come to the church. We realize that they are the church. And the conversations that they have with others and the experiences that they're sharing and modeling with others gets to be their testimony and their work of evangelism amongst their peers. It doesn't have to happen in a building, but let's live those authentic life. Let's give them the opportunity to be seen and to be heard and to know that they matter and they are the church right now. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Friends, questions? Any questions? Yeah.
Well, you said something, it says, when something happens, it's not our responsibility for the children. But Jesus said, teach the child when he's young.
Yeah.
When he grows up, will never depart.
Yeah.
So isn't that our responsibility to teach
Right.
them?
I'm saying it's not your responsibility to ensure that they are saved. I said it is your job to model for them, to equip them. But it's not your responsibility to make sure that your child has chosen Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions, and you said an example about they work on the Sabbath. They come with their painted clothes to Sabbath. Don't we teach them first that those people that God's law is that honor the Sabbath, you don't work on the Sabbath, and it's a training for them to.
Yeah. I think this is an important one to get to look at. The students that I had coming on Sabbath morning are kids that normally stayed in their dorm room and played video games or did not attend church, but because we provided this opportunity for them to make a difference in their community, that got to be 4 hours where I, as a college pastor, got to hang out with them and build a relationship with them and actually talk to them about their faith, ask them why they chose to come, and then we would go to church together. So for me, it wasn't I'm making kids work on Sabbath. Again, the task is an opportunity for me to engage with a young person and for that young person to be able to encounter Jesus through what they've just done. And then they'd go to church, which they did normally do. So in that aspect, I really believe that they were honoring Sabbath because they were having conversations about Jesus while they were getting to make an impact in the community. I know, controversial. That's what I said. Call me a Southern California pastor if you want to. Yeah, my mom's not for it either. But my role as a collegiate pastor was like, how do I talk to these kids? And right now in our churches, if your kids are coming to church, they're only getting 1 or 2 hours with a pastor a week. The rest of the time is at school or at home. Where do we get to spend time actually talking about Jesus? And that was one of my ways. I'm not saying for everyone to do it, but framed correctly, I think it's a really positive thing. Yeah, hi.
To go along with that, you could start on Sunday with a work bee like that. It's not the same as taking them to church afterwards, but it is building that relationship with them.
That's true.
And then encourage them to come the next week, or encourage them to come the week before to learn all of what you're going to do the next day.
It's true. It was something a lot of parents had brought up to me, but Sunday on our college campus is study day.
Yeah.
So they're losing a study day to come, and they wouldn't come. But on Sabbath, when they didn't come to the study day, they got to be able to serve in the community and go to church and we eat lunch together. Like, it was a novel thing for a lot of our students.
I think I'm not against it. So
Yeah.
We've helped with some projects like that too.
It's not the norm. I get it, but I was definitely getting to engage with a different demographic of students. Again, who normally would not come to church
and they'll
or
remember
have conversations.
And they'll remember that.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? Yeah.
Give Linda a
Thank you
hand.
so much, everyone.
Great. Now you continue this afternoon?
Yeah, I have one on tech. What do we do as tech and media exhausted people for our families
So,
in the church?
back this afternoon, love to have you. It was great lunch being served now for those while we were calf. Anything else you want to say, Linda? I think you did great.
Friends, there's a lot of data. Data is really important, but honestly, I think the bottom line is we're losing young people in the church because we've stopped having authentic relationships with them.